Alright, well, we're going to give this video a stab at it, shall we? We were just cleaning up our 180 Mirage Drive, getting some squeaks and noises out of it. I guess it's time for the annual What's New in the Kayak Fishing World kayak fishing video review of fishing kayaks that are powered by pedal drive systems that are for YouTube. I'm not a big fan of making these sorts of these videos. If you couldn't tell by that introduction. If you are unfamiliar with my channel, I kayak fish about 150 days a year, say 3 days a week. My kayak selection's based on my environment of what I fish. But I'll give you some feedback and thoughts of things that have developed for me in the last 2 years. I really am going to avoid talking about price. Perhaps I will have unique perspectives and things that have happened to me, and fishability feedback. Currently in that rotation back there, right, I've got a Lightning kayak. That's primarily what Margaret uses. If I have a problem with one of my Hobie kayaks, that is my backup kayak. That guy over there is the Old Town Autopilot 136, and that guy over there, that's a 2021 Hobie Outback. Anyone can make these sort of videos, right? There's plenty of couch kayak fishermen that make them all the time. I've got a little bit of a shoulder injury. I think hopefully it's not going to develop into anything serious. I hope I don't have to become one of those channels for the next month and change. So if you've been following me for a little while, I switched off of the 2018 Outbacks because I cracked 2 in the drive wells, and these were what were now available. About a month and a half ago, I had a 2020 Outback crack. Let me show you where it cracked, and we'll talk about these new Outbacks. I've got mixed feelings about them. My last Outback developed a crack right here, so not in the drive well, right? That's where some of the older ones are cracking. In this bolt, a crack formed right there. So far, so good. We're looking good here on this one. But yeah, I had a crack just form like a circle. I like a lot of the new functions on this Outback. The additional speed, I definitely noticed there's probably a half knot addition in speed on them versus the older Outback. It does have better storage. So I think its overall fishability is better. The only thing I'm not as crazy about is I feel I'm less comfortable in rougher water than the older Outback. I notice in following seas it's a little more, the old Outback was kind of squirrely in following seas also. This one I'm not comfortable bringing it in on a good rolling sea, a wind against tide. Definitely doesn't feel like I'm planted in the boat. So I noticed a lot of guys that are taking these Outbacks offshore are for the most part sticking to the older ones. My other big critique is, I don't know if it's the weight, the distribution's different. That, short drag through the sand. I feel it on this one. Maybe I'm getting older. But it just doesn't seem to drag on sand as easily. I noticed that also in surf launching and landing. The other one isn't all that forgiving. This one's even less forgiving. The other thing that kind of sucks is to lift it up. You really got to spend that extra time paying attention to what's going on with the rudder. And spending extra time in a surf zone looking at your rudder is kind of a no-no. So there's a couple of things that are taking me a while to get used to, but now, every kayak replacement, any customer service stuff, related issue, it's been a breeze for me. I fished on the Hobie Outbacks 14 years. I'm actually talking fishing, not couch fishing. The Hobie Revolution I've had, and I'd like the Hobie Revolution. Find the Hobie Revolution as I'm getting older, fatter, and lazier. Not as comfortable for full days fishing. Like, sometimes I get out in that kayak and I kind of want to stretch out if I'm out there for 6 hours. The Hobie Outback I can be a little less concentrated about how tight I am in that kayak. So if you've been watching videos and you pay attention to any details, you'll see frequently I bring out 2 drives with me out on the water. Number one, it's a safety reason, right? Let's say I decide I'm going to have a very long day out in the ocean. I have a failure out there on a fin system. Yeah, I probably want a backup, unless I can comfortably paddle 2 miles. In an emergency, I probably can, but I think having one of these as a backup is a better idea for me. I put more mileage, physical miles, on the non-reverse drive. Different iterations of this have been around for a long time. People very frequently incorrectly reference this as a V1 drive. The V1 drives were an older drive. You know, the click and goes, they were called. The next version of that was called the V2, and the one I just held up was initially called the Glide. And I think the Glide came out somewhere like 2015. Probably the best, just straightforward propulsion system Hobie has ever made, in my opinion. It doesn't have features, but it's easy to work on. It's durable in salt water. It probably has the best speed. So we had the squeaky noises. This is a 180 drive. Now they have these kick-up fins, right? You hit anything they're supposed to kick up. A lot of this stuff is, I don't know, I feel like it almost is here for just to win a Best in ICAST award. Sometimes its practical uses don't always reflect to an angler. For the most part, you know, it does some awesome things. These kick-up fins, they work well if you know, you put a new set screw in. These set screws are plastic. I have to change them probably every 3 weeks, every month, or readjust them. They kind of just wear down on the, you know, I don't know if it's the set screw wearing down, and I'm not hitting things either. They just wear down. The kick-up fins no longer grab, but at the same time, that's better than a bent mast or bent spine, which was the original issue with these 180 drives I had. Now I'm not bending the spines out anymore. The only thing is I'm pedaling along and these fins just kick up all the time. For whatever reason, I always seem to have more issues with the idler cables wearing out. You know, the chains always seem to loosen up a lot quicker on this. So the preventative maintenance is a lot more frequent. You know, if I skip it, you'll see like that last video, I'll have the squeaking drive the whole time. Take a look at these chains, break them down, do far more greasing and far more maintenance on this guy for regular use. You know, if you're getting a new Outback and you're gonna fish, let's say two times a week, I'd get yourself at least a dozen of these set screws, because you're gonna have to constantly change them out because they won't grab the kick-up fins. At least they're not for me. I don't know. What the hell do I know, right? I'm not a shill. Sometimes the simplicity and enjoyment of the original system, sometimes I kind of like that too. Like, so for example, let's say I'm out in the salt water and I see a group of fish feeding on the surface, and I want to give it a lot of speed, right? I got to burst with the most amount of speed I can to those fish. Sometimes I'll put too much force onto the pedals and push them too quickly. The fins will just kick up and they'll pump each other, right? And then I'm not getting the speed I need. And it's not like these screws aren't tightened down to their max. They're down to the max. They just wear out. That's why I'm usually using the other drive in the saltwater and the ocean, especially for that reason primarily. For the most part, you know, certain things are better though. It's easier to rig up a fish finder now. I think the new rudder, it turns very smoothly on mine compared to my old Outbacks. You do have to be a little more careful with the rudder. There are more things to break on the newer Outbacks. So just things that I would consider. You know, I've been on the Hobie Revolutions. I like those a lot. In my opinion, those seem to be a little bit better for more one-dimensional fishing. If you're only going to target striped bass, that's all you're going to do. It's a great platform for that. Here in the southeastern North Carolina, man, like I had a Revo for a little bit living here, and I found it was a hard platform to use here because of the amount of dimensions the fishing might have. You know, I surf launch, hit the ocean, I might have to be ready for king mackerel, Spanish mackerel, red drum, sheep's head, silly stuff like spadefish. The day can get pretty complicated sometimes. And then, if I want to keep fish, I need ice because you can't use a stringer here for unexplained reasons. Yeah, pro anglers, definitely in certain parts of the country, it's definitely the best, probably kayak fishing platform. I still think I prefer an Outback over it. And always the thing that seems to often be overlooked about a pro angler is the weight. I've been on that Pro Angler 12. A couple guys I know with. Majority of the guys here that I fish with or know of, I'd say it's like 80% Hobie, 18% Old Town, 2% other stuff that I fish with or know. I don't know much about natives. I don't know much about wilderness. It's just not something I've ever been exposed to, fished with. I can't give you any real concrete feedback on that stuff. It's all Old Town Hobie, and I have a Lightning kayak, so that's kind of it. I've seen that new vibe in use. When I was down in the Everglades, I fished with buddy Kevin, Small Craft Advisory. He does guiding down there, and it was the new vibe Shearwater. First time I actually seen it. I like the concept and idea. Looked like a really well-performing boat for a smaller angler, smaller frame. I think it's only 34 inches wide. Looks like it functions very well in a couple different ways. Can adapt to the trolling motor, a couple of different things. It looked pretty cool. I was kind of impressed with how that one performed. You know, based on pedal drive circumstances, honestly, I didn't get like that much into it. But yeah, for the most part, the pro angler, not for me. There aren't a whole lot of settings I'd use it in. You know, if you browse Facebook, it's definitely the most widely available used Hobie. I think a lot of people can get wrapped up into the hype of that kayak, and then they realize it's not the right platform for where they're fishing. That's kind of what I think happens a lot of the time. But there's certain areas. It's probably the best performing pedal kayak for the most part for freshwater. I would say that 100%. And for a lot of saltwater. If all you do is sight fish red drum, it's a great platform for that. But for what I've done and what I like to do, it never showed any interest for me. I mean, I like the roominess of it, but I don't see myself getting a big bang for my buck out of the, that kind of performance. In terms of other performance kayaks, so let's move off the Hobies. I mean, I've been on the Hobie Compass. I haven't been on that Hobie Passport. The gist of what I have to say, if I had to pick the Lightning kayak or Hobie Compass as a budget kayak or secondary kayak, whatever the hell you want to call it, I know people will not like the idea that I use the word budget for Hobie Compass or budget for Lightning kayak, but a less expensive or secondary kayak. I would take the Lightning kayak personally, even though I hope they're next generation. I've submitted a lot of my feedback. I'm optimistic the next generation will correct any of these issues. I still think it's a more seaworthy platform, and that word gets tossed around. It handles waves better. It has better primary stability. You're more comfortable paddling it. Your seating position is a little bit more natural, at least to me. And I also like the simplicity that the Lightning kayak offers. I put Margaret in it. Let's say if I want to take it out fishing, there's not anywhere nearly as many things that are going to circulate what I have to do with it. Right now, the first generation, I don't like the turning radius on it because I fish so much structure. That was my biggest complaint, the turning radius, and the scupper hole drainage. Hopefully is going to get improved. Right now the scupper hole, it feels like the older Hobies. It just fills up with water, and it's fine. Your stuff's going to get wet. You're on a kayak. You should know that, but it's not as smooth of a draining system. However, it's got good speed, great stability. It's easy to transport, which is important. The handles are easy to move around, easy to lift. There's a lot of good positives about that kayak. Next, I want to talk about the Old Town systems, right? That seems to be something that I'm frequently asked about because I've been on them now for a few years, and I've been on a couple different ones. So I had the ability to fish an Old Town Predator for over a year. That's a great boat. The new Salty 120 PDL is really impressive. I am not on one yet, where it really hasn't come up. But based on the things I like the weight of this kayak. The speed's impressive too. I think it's a very well-rounded fishing platform. It almost feels like the answer to the Outback. I don't have an Old Town pedal drive system in my hands right now to show you. Most people know if you're in the kayak market, Old Town's warranty is definitely impressive. Those PDL drives, all the maintenance I've had to do on them have been really easy. I put over 100 days on that PDL drive last year, the last year and a half rather, and it was very easy to maintain. There was just a couple of things to do there. I never ever had to open it up to work on it, the internals. So that was really, that was a breeze. The Predator was an awesome big water platform, had good speed, stability was great. My only stability related complaint is the higher seating position and the propulsion in rough seas, particularly following seas. I wasn't the biggest fan of. I found that getting that torque and that motion with that high center of gravity, I like the primary stability. I bet you if you were lower to the water, and if there was a way to be lower to the water in rough seas, I think the primary stability on the Predator is better than the Outbacks. However, being so high off the water, off the hull, to get that movement from the PDL drive, following seas felt a little sketchier. That's what I would say about it. But other than that, it fishes very well. It had good storage as well. That PDL drive versus the Mirage drive, for a short day, you won't notice a difference. Me personally, I have an easier time maintaining speed and doing more miles on a Mirage drive versus a PDL drive. PDL drive feels more like a machine. I don't want to say the Mirage drive feels like a toy, but the PDL drive is definitely a more full body experience to get that torque and speed going. If I wasn't doing this at a full-time capacity and I wanted a kayak for just my pleasure fishing, I still think a PDL would definitely, and if I worked a 9 to 5 job or had a lot of other responsibilities outside of fishing, I think I'd still want a PDL though, for that more stress-free peace of mind. And now, if you look at my other videos, I've got an Old Town Autopilot. I really love the way those things fish, man. I do. I genuinely love them. The big complaint I have, and the issues I personally have, is the transportation of this system. I went with what was recommended, the carts that were endorsed by Old Town. I cannot move my Old Town in soft sand. My Autopilot. First of all, I got to strip off the motor and the battery, which goes without saying. But like a lot of times, I have problems with the carts. People have said use the Wilderness to make like the big water kayak one. Apparently, the Wilderness one. I'm reading Facebook stuff, so that means I could be getting complete bullshit, just like you're getting complete bullshit from me on this YouTube video. But apparently, what I read is that the Wilderness cart doesn't fit on the Autopilot properly, so I kind of scrapped getting that idea. The problem I have with the Malone one is when you set it up on that kickstand and you try to put the weight of the Autopilot onto it, on the soft sand, it collapses. The kickstand can't grab and hold the weight of the Autopilot, so it folds over itself. You do it once, okay, you try to do it a second time, this thing weighs 100 pounds plus, this Autopilot. Anytime I got to deal with soft sand and that happens, yeah, I'm pretty tired from it, man. And a lot of times I'm not using the autopilot as frequently as, let's say I fished in the ocean, left the Hobie on the truck, look at the weather, okay, I gotta go fish backwater the next day. I'm not gonna swap kayaks, that weight of moving them around gets to me. So the autopilot's great, I think, if you know the types of launches you're gonna have. I didn't realize I have no problem putting it on my truck or on my tailgate. I use a Boondocks bed extender. It's not a problem doing that. It's the moving in the launches area, because I have diverse launches. Some have rocks, some have sands, some might have a dune, and okay, sometimes I have a very convenient boat ramp or something that I can pull the kayak up to, unload. You know, here for the most part, the boat ramps are pretty busy. I hate being that guy. I don't want to be the kayak guy that's tying up a boat ramp. No way. So I try to even avoid using boat ramps for the most part. And, you know, loading up from a boat ramp is a little tricky too if you're not used to it. You don't have to lift that kayak. It's not that easy. But anyway, all those things said, fish is great. The best part about it is obviously that spot lock feature is killer. You get a lot more fishing time out of it because if you're tying knots, re-rigging, doing things, hitting that spot lock, you don't lose ground. Huge fan of that. There's a kayak fishing channel I watch, Kayak Catfish. Huge fan of that, what he does out there in Tennessee. I think it's really cool. And I think the Autopilot is king for structure or chunk-based fishing, toe tog fishing in Long Island Sound, sheepshead fishing on the pilings here in North Carolina. It's excellent. Also standing and sight fishing, which I don't do much of, and maybe I should do more of. Also really good for that. You can control it while standing up, almost going 4 miles an hour. It's one of the unique platforms that lets you do that. So it does have its like really killer benefits to it. But you know, I'd say my biggest drawback for it is loading it and unloading it with the cart system that I've been using. And I'm trying to explore what the other cart alternatives are, or maybe the lighter Autopilot might be what I need. You know, the weight of the Autopilot between the Minn Kota motor and the battery system, you can't surf launch that. I mean, you need those miracle conditions, and even then, you know, just dragging it a couple of feet on the sand, it'll wear you out. It's the kayak that, you know, if something's a mile away that I'm kind of lazy or was feeling tired to go to, yeah, sure, with that battery system, I got no problem. And always the most common question I've always heard about the battery system is, how long can you run it on? How long can you go with it? And that's a good question, man. I always ask that too. At this point, I don't see a situation where I would kill it on a normal day of fishing. When I run it on a Dakota Lithium is the battery I use. It's important if you're considering a trolling motor powered kayak. Don't cut costs on your battery, man. Use a good quality battery. Dakota Lithium battery, I use it for my fish finders and for that Autopilot. I would say, I ran it on full power, which is 10, for over 4 hours once, trying to kill it. And I got blown off the water by thunderstorms before I was able to kill it. I got 4 hours, so over 12 miles at full power. I was doing donuts in a creek, not donuts, but I was like going through creeks, stuff like that. So, yeah, battery, I think under most circumstances with a lithium battery, you'll have a hard time draining it. But like I said, at the same time, do not cut costs. Don't go with, you know, a battery that doesn't have a reputation. That's all I have to say. One of the things that I find is a limitation or a purchasing decision. If you want to use it under a lot of low clearance, keep this in mind. That spotlight feature does not grab well under a low clearance bridge. There's a couple docks I like to fish, and I get a lot of interference because of the clearance above my head. It's basically like this porch above my head. That spot lock satellite can't grab it and anchor you up instantly. That's been my experience with it. So, you know, a high bridge is fine, but some low clearance stuff, maybe like 5-6 feet above your head, I would say probably it's not going to grab it the way you were hoping for. So that's one thing also to keep in mind. However, if you've got launches where you can just pull your truck up to it and dump the kayak and just drag it a couple of feet or wheel it over on very smooth surfaces, and you're only using a couple places. You know, very convenient lake launches. I can't speak more highly about, you know, the experience, the fishing experience that kayak provides. However, keep it in mind, if exercise is something you're interested in, yeah, that one also. You know, I still enjoy getting the workout and the exercise from the manual powered kayaks, the Hobies. It feels good to catch a fish. You know, if you want to catch the most amount of fish possible, just get a boat. You know, but it feels good to catch fish using a manually. Maybe it's just ego. There's a sense of satisfaction I still get 14 years later catching fish on using something that's manually powered. In terms of used kayak buying, Hobies, Old Towns, right now it's probably going to be hard to find them. Me personally, I'd want the warranty on a Hobie, unless it's in a really good shape older Outback that I'm looking for, or an older Revo. I personally just want the warranty. On the Old Town stuff, warranty does not transfer owner to owner. I'd probably be more comfortable rolling the dice on a used Old Town, me personally, if there's no hull damage to it. However, I've had excellent customer service with both of these companies now. Also, that Autopilot has been super reliable. Okay, so the only thing I've had happen to me with the Autopilot is, so I was in some rougher conditions one day, and that's that front connection. And I think I was taking a beating from some waves, and the connector got a little bit loose. And what happens there's a little bit of overheating and arcing, and the plastic got kind of warped. I had to replace this front connector and rewire the whole thing. Rewiring that kayak sounded like a terrifying task at hand. It was actually very easy. Other than that, I haven't had any other issues. I've heard some guys told me they've demagnetized the kill switches. Never happened to me. My trolling motor has had 0 issues. Only thing I have a problem with, it's this guy right here, the Malone cart. That transportation system just does not cut it for me. So if you have your own that you've been using, please share it with me. And I'll take a look at it. Probably the Hobie Outback, 100 to 120 days a year. This Autopilot I used probably about 50 last year. Got skunked on it plenty. Don't forget, there's plenty of days of videos you don't see, even though you see a collection of videos on this channel. You know, days that I'm on it that I got skunked, or something there wasn't a good enough video to do. So that's my take on all that stuff. I like that Autopilot a lot. I like the Predator. The Salty PDL looks pretty cool. The new Outbacks are great, even though I like the functionality of those reverse drives. The reliability of somebody who fishes as much as me is still very concerning. Things still happen to them, things I need to do with them. So I kind of prefer to always go with the Glide drive. The Glide is what I bring with me offshore as the primary drive, because even with regular maintenance, I'm still kind of nervous about the 180 drive. Still have problems with it, so I mean, small problems that are correctable, and you know, I never let one build to a catastrophic failure with it. But yeah, I don't want to be trying to outrun strong southwest winds, and that's my, you know, my primary method of propulsion. I'm pretty sure you can't get Sea-Tow, but Towboat US is available for the Autopilots. If that battery fails, or I have something that fails me out there, I'm not confident I could paddle this thing 2 miles, maybe a mile. It's important to always keep in mind distance in kayaks, because it's something that you can paddle, you know, in an emergency. And you know, I don't know how long a Towboat US service might take me, and I don't want to find out because I might be in conditions that are unwarranted. Right? I got to keep that, always keep that in mind too. In a lot of settings, it'll probably be fine. But, you know, even big lakes, stuff like that, it's also kind of just, you know, wear it with a side of caution always. It's something that could be out of your control. For the most part, I'm probably planning for something that'll never happen. But I don't want to be the one where, you know, it happens at the same time. So that's my take on those kayaks, man. Hope you guys enjoyed. I hope I don't have to make that many videos like this going forward, but we'll see. Hopefully we'll be feeling good in a couple days. you know, knock on wood, I've never had any shoulder or back injury in my life. So this is kind of a new experience to see if that's going to continue, especially when the mullet show up. I can throw a cast net from it, right? That's a big, huge deal. When the sheepshead show up, I'll be using the Autopilot on the dock pilings, on the jetty. It's a good, any rocks, etc. The Autopilot's really good for sheepshead fishing, as long as you have clearance for those satellites. So, yeah, that's kind of it. So, hope you guys enjoyed. You can check out those kayaks. Like I said, I don't have experience on that other stuff, and I wanted to, you know, I'm not playing, you know, price value man with you. What's the value kayak? That's not my, you know, fucking 1,000 videos out there like that now. So I could do more videos like this. All right, let me get going. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you liked the video. I'll catch up with you soon. Hopefully the next one will be on the water. I hope it will be.